Thank you. It's wonderful to be here at Zeitgeist. Today I'm going to talk about these 4 topics: the Millennium Development Goals, global dignity, cultural freedom, and some challenges. So I thought to get in the right mood, it would be good to start with some music, since it's after lunch and everything. So I'll do that. That was fun, right? I went to Berkeley, what can I say? All right, there's a slight point to this. There's 3 types of people, right? You have the activist, the pragmatist, and the philosopher. The activist, represented here by Zach, he gets in your face, he's loud, right? Then you have the pragmatist, who might be a politician, a CEO, something of that nature, who looks more to the end. How do we actually deliver, right? And then you have the philosopher, who takes one step back and analyzes, but doesn't really get down and dirty with the content. So too often we find that these 3 groups fight amongst each other. So we need to make sure that we actually pull in the same end of the rope, right? And the other thing is that, of course, we have all these 3 in us. Depending on the situation, we're an activist, we're a pragmatist, and a philosopher. And the last thing, of course, is that I'm most of those things. So even though I might like Zach, that doesn't mean that Zach likes me, right? All right, here are the happy campers. I'd like to tell you a story about Cedric. I was traveling in South Africa a couple of years ago, and we were visiting HIV/AIDS related initiatives, and I went to a township outside of Cape Town, and we met with a young man, more or less my own age. And I remember thinking when I met him that if I lived here, I would have liked to be his friend. He seemed like a very nice guy. He invited me into his house, which was more like a shack, a bit smaller, about half this stage, right? Here he lived with his 3 children, his wife, who was disabled. She was in a wheelchair. He told me that he was HIV positive, and also that his wife was HIV positive, and that he was that he was worried about the future. He was worried because he didn't know who would take care of his children, who would take care of his sister, because in this area, they didn't have access to medication. And then he looked me in the eye and he said, "Please do everything you can for people like me because it's hard." And I thought that that was a message not really only to me, it was a message to all of us. So that's why I try to tell that story and bring Cedric's message to as many people as possible. All right, how many people here have heard of the Millennium Development Goals? Raise a hand. See, I usually go to high schools and junior high schools to do a similar talk. So how many have heard of the Millennium Development Goals? Well, quite a lot of people. How many people are a bit fed up, tired of the Millennium Development Goals? Well, there's a couple. That's very courageous. I think the MDGs are basically too important for us to be tired of them. We need to keep at it and deliver. And about a year ago, it looked like this, where you had the green at the top are on track, and we should be able to reach them by 2015. The yellow shows that we are a bit behind schedule, but making good progress, and the red is that we're falling behind schedule. Whereas now, if you look at the World Bank figures, it's more like this, where we're falling behind schedule on most of the goals. And this doesn't work well if we want to create a stable and just world. This is not helpful to create a peaceful world. Ending extreme poverty is something we need to focus on. We need to make the system more just. Because if we're able to end extreme poverty, that is good, obviously, for the poor, but it's also good for the rich, and it's good for you, and it's good for me, because it creates a more secure and a better world. All right, I'm going to show you this graph. You might recognize the dots a little bit, because Hans Rosling has been my teacher for a few years. I've been using his graphs for like 4 years. And this is the world as it was in 2007, right? With GDP per capita, so we're rich at this end, and child mortality on this axis, where low child mortality is good, right? So I'm going to go through and show you Norway through history compared to today's world. So this is Norway in 2004, when my daughter was born, Ingrid. Then Norway was more or less like Singapore when it comes to GDP per capita and child mortality. In 73, when I was born, we were more or less like Malaysia. In 37, when my mother was born, we were like Peru. And when my grandmother was born in 1898, we were more or less like Uganda. When my great-grandmother was born, we were like Mozambique. And when my great-great-grandmother was born, we were like Burundi. And this is one of the best success stories in development, where Norway has moved from a state like Burundi to what we are today on income and child mortality. Now, when Hans made this, this graph, he thought it was great because you had the Norwegian flags, right, all the way up. But then before 1905, when we were in union with Sweden, he put a little the Swedish mark, which was on our flag. And he thought that was great fun, because he left his Swedish mark on the Norwegian graph. But if you look at it, it becomes very apparent that our development was kind of slow, and it really took off after 1905. So I don't know whether that was actually intentional. Now, I've been working with the United Nations Development Program for the last few years, promoting the MDGs. And when you get into the field, you see that these goals are not abstract and theoretical. They become very concrete and understandable. And the work that I have seen has been both useful and important. So this picture is from Mongolia. This is from Ulaanbaatar, the capital of Mongolia, actually the waste disposal site. If we look at the middle of the picture there, there's a traditional tent. Inside that tent, we have kids that go to school. Now, this is to show Millennium Development Goal 2, education for all. And these kids are part of the people that live off of collecting goods from the waste disposal site. The UNDP and their local partners have gone in and actually asked kids to come into school, go every day, and try to create a learning environment. So these kids have a tough life. But if you ask them, like I did when I was there, what do you want to be when you grow up? What are your hopes? What are your aspirations? Well, they started like, one wanted to be a police officer, another wanted to be a doctor, a third wanted to be a politician. So it goes to show that they have the same dreams and aspirations as the rest of us, even though they live in a very difficult economic environment. And also, if we want innovation, like I know a lot of you are interested in this room, the best way of doing that is to get everyone to innovate and not be hampered by poverty every day. If we can get all people to innovate, we will get much more out of it, not to mention the market, which will open up if we actually are able to pull up the poor people of the world to a better life quality. Right? This is in Bujumbura in Burundi. This is from a microcredit company, a mill. And I'm talking here to the CEO of the microcredit. This is an example of MDG 3, right? Gender equality. She told me that she had 7 kids. The oldest was now in university, and the 6 others all went to school. All because she was able to do this at her mill, that she was able to work at the mill and make some money. So including women is good for at least 2 reasons. There's plenty of others, but it's good economics that we use 100% of the workforce instead of 50%. And they invest in the future. Women are very good at investing in the future, in education, in healthcare, etc. But what are the MDGs really about? Well, they're about freedom to make decisions on one's own life. They are about access to a more dignified life for all. So a couple of people got together and started talking about this. This is John Bryant of Operation Hope in the US, and Pekka Himanen, who's a philosopher, did his PhD at 21 and has now given out his 14th book, and I think he's 33 years old. We're at this meeting with the World Economic Forum. They have this group of younger people called the YGL. And we started talking about this because we were making timelines and everything for what we were to do about the problems of the world. But no one were really talking about why. What's our ethical sort of direction for this, right? So we said that the one word that sort of makes sense to all of us to focus on is dignity. So we want to do 3 things in global dignity. We want to engage the World Economic Forum and in this conversation. We want a global conversation with as many people as possible taking part in focusing on dignity-centered leadership. And we want to engage youth, which is the most tangible part of this. Because dignity is a source of strength and a source of direction. Last year, we did a Global Dignity Day in more than 20 countries all across the world, on all continents. And what we do is we go into classes or into schools, and we ask the kids to define dignity in their own words, to define what they are for. It's not allowed to be against. You have to be for something. Say what that is. You need to come up with a way you can increase other people's dignity the next year, what you concretely want to do. And then we also ask for their dignity stories. Stories where people, either they or someone else, or they have been lifted by someone else. A story about how someone increases someone else's dignity. So this is a leadership course, an ethics course, and a motivational seminar in 1 hour and 50 minutes for the kids. And this is John Tetzschner here teaching or talking to the kids in Norway on Global Dignity Day last year. He's here, right, somewhere. He's head of operation, Opera Software. Now, this is Richard Garrett. We're going to hear more from him tomorrow at the New Frontiers session. And he was kind enough to convey a message to the kids from space.
Greetings, this is Richard Garriott, flying aboard the International Space Station. I have a message to all the participants of Global Dignity Day. The view is spectacular from here in orbit, and in one day I can look down on all of you without seeing the borders that separate you. It really becomes apparent that we are all in this together. We really do have much more in common than what separates us. By focusing on dignity as a powerful source of positive change, You are bringing the world forward. The next steps are up to you. Goodbye from me on the ISS, and I wish you the very best.
Well done, Richard. Thank you for that. I thought that was very cool for the kids to get that message. All right. So the MDGs are about dignity. Cultural freedom is a prerequisite for quality of life and for life with dignity. Cultural freedom is to have the opportunity to live one's own culture and religion, and at the same time being considerate to others and accepting that others have the same freedom. I'll give you some examples. This is from Guatemala. This is Pedro and Felina. They are spiritual guides, and they taught me a lot about cultural freedom. They took me through a traditional ceremony for the Maya Indians in Guatemala. And the whole ceremony really made me understand how important corn is to the Maya culture. Because they actually burn corn in the ceremony. The smoke goes up and they talk to the ancestors, connect with them through the smoke. They say that they are people of the corn. So to understand how ingrained corn is to their own identity is vital if you want to do land reform or if you want to do innovations in agriculture to make it more profitable. You need to understand that before you set up your ways of diversifying. So to handle cultural diversity in today's world is one of the central challenges of our time. And we see that, I think, all across the world. Most of you, or probably all of you, have thought a lot about this already. We have this in Norway as well. We used to think that we had to travel to see the world. Now we can stay in Norway and actually talk to our fellow Norwegians, and they have this tremendous resource and knowledge about different parts of the world where they have their roots. But sometimes it's difficult. Difference can be difficult and challenging. And even positive things can be, new things that are very positive can be difficult. So I thought I'd show you an example of that. This is from the 17th of May, a couple of years back, our National Day.
Kronprinsen tok seg god tid I dag og snakket med nesten alle, men ikke.
You can see the mayor that was standing beside, he got it down, right? He really got it down. So the point is that we need to work this out in a positive way. Now, when we look at the world, we have an economic downturn, right? We have a climate crisis. And one way to look at this is that we used to be standing on the shoulders of giants, but now we are standing on the shoulders of our children, it seems. And that's our challenge. We need to raise to this challenge. I think when we are at the retirement home, our grandkids are going to come and they're going to visit us, and they're going to ask us, so grandmother or grandfather, what did you do to the major challenges of your time? What did you do when it came to extreme poverty? What did you do when it came to climate change? What role did you play? And that's what we need to think about. Our generation's challenge is to produce human development in a sustainable fashion. We can do this. We have a window of opportunity, I think, in today's world. We've never been able to actually reach as far as we can in today's world. So I just wanted to leave you with Cedric's words. He looked me in the eye and he said, please do everything you can for people like me, because it's hard. Thank you for your attention.